I find it astounding how the most well-established of industries or of services, at least to me, can all of a sudden be thought of differently and something put in, whether it's going to be AI or whether it's a subscription service or whether it's, at the end of the day, all of these decisions are designed to make these people money, right?
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's not convenience to the client. It's none of that. It's just, we don't want to make these funerals easier for you. We just want to make money through this method. Hey Shane, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we're at that time of year already. I can't believe it's another year gone.
I've just had a look. It's the 6th at the time of recording, and I don't think I've ever had, and I probably say this each year, I don't think I've ever had a time when, like, the first week, almost, 7 days, it's gone. It's literally blink of an eye stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an age thing. Found things getting more rapid the older I get. Used to believe, there was so much time when I was in my 20s, and now in my 50s, it's kind of like a real acceleration, I think, in time. Yeah,
it's funny how a lot of those things they turn around the older you get. I remember when I was younger, and I remember this now because I can see my kids going through it, where it was a boast. It was a flex to be able to stay up really late. I could stay up till 2:00 or I stay up till 4:00, and I can operate off 3 hours of sleep, and you'll have the occasional 24-hour stint, and you'd be like, I can do this. Like, I'm young.
Yeah.
And that's, you have that for, your late teens and into your 20s as well. And the older you get, it's like, you know what, you need 9 hours of sleep. Nothing is more important than sleep.
Yeah.
And you say to people, I go to bed at 11. It's like, 11's really late. You should go to bed at 10 o'clock because you need that sleep. And you say, yeah, I agree. It's funny how all of that changes. And when you're young, as you said, I see my kids and they're like, I'm so bored. Like, how can you be bored? Like, you've got all the time in the world. You've got all the opportunities, all the technology, and you're bored.
Yeah.
Whereas now we're struggling for time. We're talking, and it's 10:30. I've been up since 5:30 doing stuff, and I have to do that because I know that towards the end of the day, those 60 seconds, feel like almost 60 minutes to me. It's like, each minute that goes by, it's like, wait, what, did I do anything productive? It's crazy.
Yeah, I think when we were younger, I don't know about yourself, but we didn't have all the tech stuff, right? Excuse me. We had very, very simple toys. Actually, my grandma used to say, I used to get entertained by playing with the dog chain, And so I think, we found, I think, you play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers or whatever, you probably don't even have real toy guns, you're probably using your finger or something like that. So I remember doing, lots of things with very little, I think, and maybe these days it's kind of turned the other way around where we've got so many things that maybe the attention span's very little, you know what I mean? And trying to find something to do. There's certainly things to do, but we can kind of get bored really easy because, maybe the attention span or whatever. Find that myself, not just the youth, it's certainly me as well. I've kind of got used to different technologies and things like that. I can run off in 100 different directions, Certainly aren't bored though.
It's funny you mentioned that because you were saying how, things were a lot simpler, like playing with a dog chain, 100% simpler. But again, I'm just, using my kids as an example because that's what I see every day.
Yeah.
They all have phones. They have access to literally all of the information in the world. They can watch, hundreds of thousands of movies. They can go back in time to watch this. They've got millions of YouTube clips that they could watch. They could learn. They can laugh. and they just stay on one app.
Yeah.
When they get bored of it, they don't really look for alternatives. They just kind of go, I'm bored. It's like, well, you've got a phone. You've got access to everything.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's an overwhelm thing. Maybe they're just, they don't have that, not capacity per se, but, they just want to be told what to do. I don't know. It's funny. I don't know what it is. But I kind of agree with you where when we were younger, we had to kind of make our own fun, whether it be with the dog chain or, something that resembled a ball that was round enough that we could kick on the floor or throw or bat. I do remember, and this is probably a bad thing, but I still remember doing it anyway, being in school, in primary school really, and having a school that was pretty much in the bush. We had sticks everywhere. So we would find sticks that would look like guns and pretend that they were guns and kind of shoot each other with it. But like, that's the kind of creativity that we had to go through to, we had to make do with what we got. Whereas now it's a little bit of the opposite where they've been given everything. And it's almost like, well, what do we do? It's like, well, maybe you want to watch a movie, or you can play a video game, or, you can take a walk. How about that? Maybe you can actually put the device down for a bit and do something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you were speaking, I think what came to mind was kind of creativity and ingenuity in a way, because you kind of had to make do. You don't have everything available at your fingertips. So you kind of go, okay, what can I do with this? If you're playing with your mates or your brothers and sisters, you kind of just make stuff up, with whatever you have. I remember even being at school, secondary school, we didn't have a soccer ball, and we used to have these sit on like park benches, and they used to be sitting opposite each other, and we'd there'd be one person on the seat and 4 or 5 people, well, 6 people because it was even team, in the middle, and we'd play soccer like that, like one person would be the goalie sitting on the seat, and we didn't have a ball, so sometimes we would just tape up something and make it round, with tape. And it sounds a bit ludicrous and sounds, so archaic in a way, but you kind of make do and find a way,
It got you by, hey?
Sorry?
It got you by.
It did, these days, maybe someone's not going to do that unless they can go and buy a ball or something like that. But we certainly did some crazy things as well. Some that I won't mention. I was talking to someone the other day, or maybe I will mention. It's a little bit dangerous. Something we did in secondary school. There was a mate of mine. He was from South Africa, and so I'm talking kind of mid-80s, around that time. And he'd come to school. He'd gone overseas, back home, came back after holidays, and he had this silver bullet chain, and we thought it looks amazing, And we were in sheet metal class, and one of the kids had an idea to bring in a box of bullets, because we were all going to make these chains out of bullets, right? Stupid idea. Now, we didn't know that if you get a bullet and start to break the tip off it, it could have blown our hands off. And luckily for us, the one of the teachers intervened and saw what was going on. So, we got in a bit of strife. But, yeah, so I guess, sometimes your ingenuity can go a bit too far. But, it's all a part of imagination, I guess.
I know we started wanting to talk about New Year's resolutions, but I just want to explore this concept of ingenuity a little bit more. As you were talking, and I think as I was talking and then listening to myself, I often find, and I think you might be in a similar, I guess, algorithm, with social media, where I would see an idea for a business that I would think is kind of not ludicrous in a way, but I often ask myself, like, how did this business come about in terms of the thought process? And perfect examples of that are things like Uber and Airbnb, right? These are, if you were to go back and take these businesses and just explain them to people, the idea behind it is like ludicrous. Uber is essentially accepting lifts from strangers, and that was the one thing where, growing up as a kid, you say, don't accept lifts from strangers.
Yeah.
Yet here we are, here's $1 billion business idea about it. And even Airbnb, like the idea for that is like essentially allowing strangers to sleep in your house.
Yes.
And so I'll occasionally see businesses pop up, ideas and concepts that I think to myself, like, who thinks of this? Like, at what point does either the idea get stopped because somebody said this is stupid, or somebody else has said, you know what, there could be something to this, and then it goes ahead and moves forward. That always intrigues me, like, because I don't know whether it's me just being closed-minded in certain aspects, because I think most people are. They look at an idea, then they compare it to their own values, and they say, okay, well, that's a good idea, or that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like to think, I thought I was a little bit more open-minded than that, So I'd love to know where that comes from.
Yeah.
You and I are into cars, and there's a trend that's happening at the moment. It started a number of years ago, and I think it's quietened down, because I think the initial fuss has kind of been accepted, but now other manufacturers are starting to bring this thing in, and it's the act of providing a subscription service to a vehicle you've already purchased to unlock functions of your vehicle. Have you heard about this?
No, I haven't.
Actually. So the one example which I think triggered it off was BMW. So BMW, from memory, it might have been 2 or 3, maybe even more. Well, it's 2026 now, so maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they were selling cars with seat heaters. Now, seat heaters at a particular price point of vehicle usually becomes it's a given, right? Like you spend, I don't know, $80,000. It's a BMW, so you think to yourself, great, you have seat heaters. So they were selling cars with this function, and in the fine print, they were saying something like, if you wanted to use these seat heaters, it would cost you like $10 or $20 a month.
Yeah.
For seat heaters. And I'm like,
that's crazy.
Wait, what? That's crazy. So there was some big uproar over that, and I think they might have allowed it to be free. But I still think that there are some cars out there that have that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what I noticed as well, I think Tesla did this. I know there's a couple of other Chinese manufacturers, especially EVs, where they're now requiring a subscription to unlock a faster version of your vehicle. Right. It's like, well, if you want the more speed, you have to pay this ongoing. And I'm like, wait, this is really odd. Like, but it seems it's odd to me, but for another person, it might not be. I don't know, because I'm such a car person, and to take a step further back, which in hindsight, I still think is a weird idea, but I can see that in the future, it might be something a bit more widely accepted. Now, when I was running a VR company, I was introduced to a whole bunch of different companies that were kind of at the bleeding edge of things, just in general, not so much in tech, but just different ideas, like what I said about Uber and Airbnb and that sort of stuff. Companies that were getting formed to fulfill a not yet known need. You know what I mean? It was very progressive.
Yeah.
And this company that I was introduced to, I won't name them, but I'll name the service. The service was basically a subscription service for cars So it wasn't a lease of sorts. It wasn't a hire. It was literally a subscription service. And BMW actually, I think, tried this. Always BMW. They tried this for a while, and I think it still might be there. And so what you would do is you would pay X amount of dollars, and you could use this car for as long as you liked, as long as you kept on paying the subscription. And on the weekends, if you wanted to upgrade to a sports car because you're going away, then you would upgrade your subscription temporarily to do that. And then once you were done, because say you were moving to another country, you don't have to pay the subscription. The car goes back. But this subscription would cover everything. So insurance and I wasn't even sure if it covered consumables as well. But it was just like this thing where you just pay this subscription and that's it. But you never owned anything at the end of it. It was just this thing that you paid to have the privilege to use this vehicle.
Yeah.
And I thought that was ludicrous. I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
And, you know, now that again, using my kids as an example, my eldest, she has no want for a car, I guess. Like for her, a car is a car, whether it's it's a GDR or it's a Ford Laser or something that's, $3 million. She just looks at it as like, sort of four wheels and sort of like metal and carbon fiber on the top.
Yeah.
So something like that for her would be fine. Like there's no attachment to it. She doesn't, she's going to go travel for 2 months. She doesn't need, she just she pauses the subscription.
Yeah.
So what fascinates me is how a person can think of something that it seems ludicrous to either see, again, I'm putting my own opinions on this idea where people go, you know what we need to do? We need to shake this up.
Yeah.
Another example before I let you talk, because I've been talking for way too much now,
is
I saw this ad on daytime television, and obviously because, we're all in holiday mode at the moment, we are privy to all of these weird ads in the day that seem to target a particular market segment. And the one that I was watching was an Australian company that was trying to redo funerals. I wasn't sure exactly how they did it, whether it was a subscription thing or whether it was something that was just a lot easier to do. It was almost like an automated thing where it was like, tick these boxes and then this will all get done. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, I find it astounding how the most well-established of industries or of services, at least to me, can all of a sudden be thought of differently and something put in, whether it's going to be AI or whether it's a subscription service or whether it's, at the end of the day, all of these decisions are designed to make these people money, right? That's all it is. It's not convenience to the client. It's none of that. It's just, we don't want to make these funerals easier for you. We just want to make money through this method. So, I'd love to be privy to that kind of thought pattern, to even see how they come about, because you'd think there'd be some alcohol involved. I don't want an idea. Let's get people to drive in strangers' cars and we'll charge them for it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, don't we have taxis for that? He goes, yeah, but then we'll just charge them less. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, if you want to talk about that, you can.
Yeah, look, I think, fundamentally, business is about making money. They are there to solve some sort of problem, obviously, otherwise they'd go out of business pretty quickly. A business that doesn't solve some sort of problem, whether it's convenience, whether it's cheaper, faster, etc., isn't going to be around too long, But at the basis of everything, it comes down to the dollar. And I think, there's 2 points there, from the business perspective, they're probably always looking for a sweet spot, where something's happening in society where it's maybe getting too expensive, or maybe a certain service is, no longer warranted, or maybe, kind of outdated the way they do things. And, during the time, so many other technologies have come through in maybe a different industry, and they go, how can we adapt this into this industry? So thinking a different way. But I think at the core level is kind of like a money-driven thing. One, for the business because they want to make money, but also if it's not convenient for the customer, in terms of a monetary value, they're probably not even going to consider it. And I was kind of thinking, when did the concept of renting a house come up? Because we talk about the Australian dream and the American dream, and most Western countries, we want to own a house, right? And that's kind of something that we're brought up with. I wasn't brought up with that way of thinking because my parents never owned their house. They always rented their homes, and so we kind of live like gypsies a little bit, and I kind of like that, it's kind of this kind of free spirit. We're going to stay here for a while, we'll move there. And so the concept of buying a house was very, very kind of different for me, but I did it pretty early on, in my mid-20s. Bought a home, and I thought, wow, this is really different, but now I'm kind of locked into something for a long time, long period of time, and it's a lot of money, out of your wage every week. And so I'm thinking about that same concept you said about the car. I hadn't heard of that specifically from the car manufacturers. I had heard, I think it might have been in the States, where they had an app where you could go, you could rent your car out, and it's parked at this place, and someone might use it, and they may take it a couple of hundred miles away, park it there, and someone else can rent it out and do that. I don't know that much about it. That's pretty much all I know about it, but it's certainly something that was happening. And so I guess our company is going, how can we make it more affordable for people, so it keeps our business alive, but we also get another kind of client base, people that don't want to own the car but want to drive the car, And I know there's a lot of companies that have luxury cars that do the same thing. They may have 20 or 30 luxury cars, and it's kind of like a club. You pay tens of thousands of dollars a year to be in this club, and you rent out the car, and you might change the car every couple of months or something like that. So I would presume a company like maybe BMW or some of the better known higher end kind of cars or makes kind of thinking, how can we ensure longevity with our company? Because yes, we've got expensive cars and we've got buyers that can afford that, but things are going higher and higher. How can we ensure that the other 80% that can't afford one of these cars, how can they, without actually having to own it, I guess, but they're going to pay us this monthly subscription? I think it's kind of ingenious in a way. It's kind of looking at a different kind of avenue that hasn't been explored before. And there could be uproar, like you were saying about the if you want these features in the car, you've got to pay a monthly subscription. When I think about that, I think, okay, does that mean that, say we manufacture a car, it's got all the stuff already in the car? That would mean that it brings your costs down. As you know, when you've got different models, it's going to cost more because you're slowing the line down and changing things. If you built just one car with all the features in it, but it meant that I had to just flick a button if you're paying a subscription or something, and you've got access to that now, or you don't, and the features are already there, that might work out better for them financially, perhaps. So I don't know the model, but I'm just kind of thinking maybe that's behind their thinking, that if we streamline this and we just put this out like the Model T Ford, you could only have it in any color as long as it was black. We're just making one car, that's it, that's what you get. So it kind of keeps costs down for them, they might sell the car at the same price premium that they normally do. But if you're renting it, you've got these restrictions unless you pay this subscription as well. That might be attractive to someone that doesn't actually want to pay, a premium price to go and get a loan for it, or a long-term, lease or something like that, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to know. Yeah, I'd love to know where that sort of line of thinking comes from. I remember I had a discussion with a friend a couple of years ago, and admittedly, I let my ego get in the way at the start and actually walked it back, and I apologized to her. And we were talking about, it wasn't even specifically about ways to make money. It was a discussion about, I think it was just jobs in general, and how she said that she wanted to start a business picking up dog poo.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? And not being in the industry, I totally knee-jerked, and like I didn't go ham at her, but I'm like, oh, wait, I don't understand. And again, I'm using my own values and opinions on this, because like my dog is tiny, and his poos are like this big, and there's no way I'm gonna get somebody to pay someone to pick up that crap. Anyway, after I checked myself and I said, hey, look, I didn't mean that. I did some research on it, and I found that in America, there are some people that are making a lot of money picking up other people's dogs' crap, and this was in US dollars, and some were making six figures. And there was a guy that had kind of started his own little, wasn't a franchise of sorts, but he had other people doing it for him, and he was making millions of dollars. Like, you can't knock that. But, it's one of those things where, before we hit record, we were talking about a podcast where a guy he was like doing 80 different things at once, right? Or it was you, wanting to try all these different things, and like what makes things stick at what doesn't. What's an idea that that comes up, and for you meaning me or whoever, you think about it and go, that's a stupid idea. But then for another person, they're like, no, that's a brilliant idea. It's obviously based off your opinions and your experiences and everything else. But I think I'm so heavily tech focused on certain things, and I didn't even know that side. And my experience of dogs only comes from having a Chihuahua that's full grown at 4 years old, super low maintenance. I've seen dog craps that are actually bigger than him, so I get it from that aspect. So it's interesting to me to see where people have actually made money with certain ideas. I think another one, I might have mentioned this to you before. I had a client many, many years ago, and he was making a lot of money, and his business was essentially going around and buying, I think it was very specific. It was front and back bumpers and headlights of cars, and that was it. He had this massive property. It was in the industrial area, so it wouldn't have cost him too much. And he had hired like the cheapest labor he could find that could basically drive a car, and that could basically pick up these items. And he would basically scour Facebook and Gumtree and all of these different sites, and he would go, I want you to go around here and pick all these up. And a lot of the times he would buy them off people for $50 because they just wanted to get rid of them. And so he would outlay what would seem to be quite a little bit of money. Let's just say he bought 100 bumpers and they're like $50 each. Like there's a little bit of money there. But what he would do is he would get them, he would fix them, and then he would then work with insurance companies. And so car insurance companies, depending on who it was, they would have certain policies on things where, if your car is X amount of years old, we can't replace the item because either they don't make the item anymore, or if we were to supply you with a new item, your car would be deemed a write-off because the value of that item is worth more than your car.
Yeah.
So his headlights and bumpers would be alternatives. So he would then sell them to the insurance company at at a rate that was, 10x what he had paid for them.
Yeah.
And that's including, that's taking into account the labor of having someone to drive around and pick them up, of the extra time that it would take to get these same people to, say, polish up the lenses so they look all shiny, and then he did sort of remove all those out. And he made a lot of money. I think he ended up doing some pretty nasty stuff with the money. But I just remembered thinking to myself, how did he stumble upon that? Now I didn't know him. I knew him, but I didn't know if he was just a smart man or whether he just stumbled upon it, because it's not something that you would really, leave high school for and go, what? I'm just going to buy this and I'm going to sell it to these people. I'm going to make millions of dollars. He just kind of lucked into it. So, that kind of thinking always interests me. And sometimes I used to think to myself, like, why can't I think of an idea like that? Even if I could, maybe I don't have the execution to pull it off, but just to have, the kind of creativity come in. Maybe I'm thinking a little bit too creative, whereas creativity in itself might be not thinking how everybody else is thinking, but thinking in a way that is like almost absurd to stand on your laurels and go, hey, I think this is a good idea, where everybody else is saying to you, nah, man, you're an idiot. Like, that's a dumb idea. When you come thinking like that.
Sometimes it's like a perfect storm. I think, large part of it could be your background, your experiences and everything, what you're exposed to. But it's also, having that instinct of finding the gap, and kind of going, oh, look, there's actually an opportunity here, where no one else sees an opportunity. Because that's, not something that I'd think of at all, but he must have had some exposure, I guess, or maybe he, knew someone in the industry, in the insurance industry, that said, this is what we pay for this, and he probably thought, what, I can supply that a lot cheaper, and make a lot of money, a lot of margin, and it's probably looking for those gaps. Like even this, AI thing that I stumbled upon a few months ago, which it's taken a little while in Australia to kind of get off the ground. I mean, it's really good technology, but sometimes things are so new, people go, oh, that's really cool, but it's not for me, or it's not kind of normalized enough, where people just kind of jump to it or go, I've got to do that. It hasn't become a necessity. I mean, Uber is just an everyday thing now, but I remember getting an email from Uber probably, it was a long time ago now, maybe around 2017, something like that, in Australia. And I didn't know what Uber was, but because I was a part of this kind of wealth group, and they had approached these people, I was on the mailing list, it came through, and I thought, what the heck is this, And it sounded pretty good, but I never went forward with it at that time. It kind of sounded like it had too many holes at that time. But, no one would kind of think twice to either, if you're that way inclined, want to do a Uber delivery job or, or even take an Uber, you don't really think twice these days. Like you said, it's become that normalized with jumping in a stranger's car. And, but yeah, it's just, I think it's really looking for those gaps. And I don't know if it's something within certain people, but it's like that perfect storm. You might have the ideas, you might see the opportunity, you might even have the connections and everything, but until someone kind of jumps on board, wants to go, I'll take a piece of that as well. I'll want to buy that service, or, trying to get the legs going. It's a little bit hard. My partner and I were always discussing businesses, and I said to her last week, maybe I'm looking too far into the future with AI. It's right on our doorstep, but it's probably about 6 to 12 months away from actually, gaining proper legs in terms of normality. Maybe we should just sell coffee or something like that. It's like what everyone needs, but it's just those normal everyday businesses as well that sometimes really thrive because it's what everyone looks for in the morning. Give me a coffee type thing. But you were talking about the dog poo job, and it comes down to a lot of things where people can pick up their own dog poo, but it comes down to either you don't want to do it or you can't do it, and most of the time you can do it, but you don't want to, right? Convenience. I can mow my own lawn. I've got 2 lawn mowers and I don't use them. So I get a guy out there because I hate cutting the grass, and he's happy to do it. He's happy to get paid to do it. So I'm happy to pay him to do it. For me, I get hot and sweaty doing that. I'd rather be hot and sweaty doing other stuff. And definitely not the grass. Gardening's not for me. So I think, when you find that perfect storm where you've got, you bring convenience to people's lives, it's the right price. And it's really something they don't want to do and can afford to, pay someone else to do it. Like even like the thing with a coffee van, how hard is it to make a coffee? You put, some coffee beans in a mug, water, milk, done, right? And someone gets paid for that. It's probably $1, less than $1 worth of ingredients, and there's probably $3 or $4 worth of profit in there. Even after paying someone.
It's fun. It's funny that I think about that occasionally. In that, would I be happy with a business or running a business that is kind of just like everyone else, or do I want to do something of my own? Because that you're right, like that can literally be done. You can either buy a coffee van that's already there. You can kind of start your own in a way, or do you want to do something a little bit different? I don't know. I've always had this thing where I kind of want to do things a little different. Now, whether or not that plays in my favor or not, I can't say yes or no, but I just enjoy it. You know what I mean? I don't. I always found a little bit more joy in having something that someone didn't have, even if it was of lesser value or wasn't as good. I just kind of liked that it was a little bit unique.
Yeah.
And I think that for me reflects into businesses as well, and trying to do something a little bit different. Like, we've spoken about coaching a little bit in previous podcasts, and my coaching program is like entirely different from most people, and that's what I kind of like about it. Like, I could have run a cookie cutter coaching program. I actually had one, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. I'm sure that the value that a person that would go through either of these programs is exactly the same. But I kind of like the uniqueness with mine. I kind of like it to make it my own. And again, whether or not that's my personality type or something that I enjoy, I'm not quite sure. But I do enjoy having the creativity of changing something, whether it's for good or bad. I just want it to basically be my own, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I find it I find it interesting that I tend to shun away from what's known and what is almost a guarantee to going, let's try it a different way, or let's do it differently. Yeah. And whether or not that's something to prove to myself, I'm not sure. But that's the whole part of this kind of discussion is like, is it's intriguing how I can see things in a particular way, and I let my biases take over and go, wait a minute, that idea was pretty good, because 5 years down the track it's popped up. Yeah. There are certain things that I see, and sometimes I don't give it a thought, but other times it'll pop up 5 years down the track. And what happens quite frequently. And you're right in what you say with AI and Australia and technology in this country has always been a little bit behind the rest of the world. I know I tried to sell VR, and I did so for many years, and we did get some business from that, thankfully. But it was a struggle in that, even though the tech was a little bit more mature in other parts of the world, trying to introduce it into Australia was always a little bit difficult. Like I always thought and felt that the country as a whole was a little bit more sheepish as it came to technology. I'm not saying that we don't have great companies here that lead certain things. We most likely do, and we actually do. But from a consumer point of view, so say, if you're trying to target the average mum and dad or the small business or something like that, they're a little bit reluctant to kind of jump in, if the technology hasn't been proven here. Even if you say, look, in America, this is what they're doing, or this is in Europe, this is what they're doing, or parts of Asia, they're like, yeah, but I don't want to be the first. There's that, there's that Uber story that you're talking about where you are quite happy and taking one, and other people are like, I'm not really sure about this. Like, what if the car blows up, or what if it, what if I get kidnapped? Yeah. There are these things there, and I think that there's a little bit more of an apprehension. Generally people would rather like to feel safe and go, well, I'm happy doing what it is that I'm doing now. I don't really want to take that risk now. Yeah. Even if the risk is a short-term spend, which could then turn into a long-term save, they're just like, what, I'm happy doing what it is. I'll hire an extra person. I'll just forward it to my voicemail, or I'll just have my website do it. I don't know what it is. Yeah. But there just always seems to be that feeling in this country of that, and I don't know if it'll ever change. I don't think it will. I don't think it's in our culture. There's a thing that Australians are always, what is it, happy-go-lucky. There's that, not really care kind of attitude, and that kind of, right. And that's, yeah, she'll be right, and that's kind of how it is, in technology as well. And look, there'll be some people that will just say, no, that's not the case, and they're entitled to their own opinions. Yeah. But that's what I've seen in trying to sell tech. There are some absolutely brilliant minds that are doing cutting edge things, but it's almost a case of where if they really want to grow, they have to go overseas. It's difficult to try and get an idea off the ground here and try and get it to thrive. I'm not saying it's never happened, but if they want true growth, they kind of ship it up and then they bring it up overseas and see if it goes over in America. Yeah. So it's no, I definitely feel your pain there when it comes to AI, because AI is wonderful. Like I don't, it's funny because there's almost a feeling that I'm starting to get where AI is the Ozempic to losing weight. That's what I'm feeling. Where people use it all the time, but sometimes they're not willing to admit it. It's like, this is a brilliant course. This piece of content is brilliant. Like, I love how you've done that. Because, it just took me a while to think of it. But they're not willing to admit that they use AI. So there's a little bit of AI shaming, I guess is probably a word. There'd be something similar along those lines for sure. In a similar way to people go, wow, how did you lose all that weight? Oh, well, I stopped eating this and I exercised more. It's like, what are you talking about? Just use Ozempic. Just admit it. There's nothing to be ashamed about. Yeah. And I think that once there's a bit more of an acceptance to AI, because it is, I think what another issue is with it is that it can be seen in two different lights, like AI. AI is like this awesome, wonderful thing that can create content and that can make our lives better and all this sort of stuff. And it does, and it can. And at the same time, it's like, here's AI and it's going to take everyone's jobs and no one's going to have a job. And, you're now going to have to find another skill that you've not ever learned before because AI is now doing it. So there's this thing with it that people can appreciate it. Yet at the same time, it's like at what cost? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a similar argument to people saying how they don't like slavery and, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that and child labor and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they say, well, look at your iPhone. Your iPhone's a product of that. Yeah.
100%.
It's almost that same sort of argument there. So
yeah, absolutely.
it's interesting. It's interesting. And I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out, honestly.
Yeah, it's a little bit of tunnel vision, what you said there. I had the same discussion just over the weekend, actually, both for AI and also the, child labour, if you like, slave labour or whatever you want to call it. And without going too far into it, it's kind of like you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because at the end of the day, right, if you boycott companies that are, I'm not for child labour. Let's get that straight. But what I'm trying to say is, if you take that, whatever it's, how they're getting paid, then they're not going to have anything at all. So I'm not sure what the perfect scenario is. It would be that they don't have child slave labour, and they pay their people properly. But how you get that to happen, I don't know. There's much smarter people than me to kind of solve that. But at the same time, our country is full of products that do support that without us knowing, or without us looking and kind of looking deeper and go, oh, this company actually, when you look at it, the components are from there, but here you are using the thing every day. And with the just going back to coaching, we were talking about your coaching a little while ago, and I was thinking, even in the coaching industry, it's kind of like even that's changed, in terms of, we were talking about with the car industry, you can buy a car or you can kind of rent it. And it's kind of like that way in the coaching industry as well, like we do have programs that someone can join your program for, say, 3 months or whatever, 12 months. But there's a change where people go, you know what, there's not a lot of people that can afford it. Maybe 10% of my audience might be able to afford my high-ticket program, say. But the majority of the people, they might join a monthly membership and probably stay on for 1 or 2 years, even though the teaching might be the same, but it's just drawn out over a longer period of time, and I'll have more people in there to kind of still be able to support what I need as well, because obviously you can't work with 1,000 people one-on-one. But I could probably do that in some sort of membership and give people as much value as I can and help, So at some point, someone must have had to have thought of that, how do I get more people in that I can help more people, but also make it affordable so they can get the help they need, but it's also affordable for them. So one day, maybe they'll be able to afford my high ticket program where we're working one-on-one or in a small group or something like that, and that's a change that I've seen over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I guess. That's become much bigger, where memberships seem to be the way to go. And I guess a huge part of our culture anyway, it's how do we make this all affordable? Because people certainly want the help and want the products and they want the thing, but how do we get it in their hands? And I think that's that kind of needs to be at the forefront of the thinking anyway, whatever idea we come up with. How do we make it so it's a good match for both of us? One, you can't have one client for the whole year. It's not going to be sustainable for you. It's not going to be sustainable for your client either. So you're going to have multiple. How do we do this where it's good for both parties? Yeah, that was just a note I kind of thought about for the coaching industry, and there's been quite a significant amount of changes, I think, in the coaching industry. Yeah.
But no, I do understand what you're saying with, coaching and the industry changing. I think, especially as it pertains to AI, and this is like, this should really be a podcast in of itself, talking about this sort of stuff. But it's something that is going to change so many different things. It's going to make coaching, it's based on the entire introduction of this podcast. I've kind of made it a bit more of an effort to try and see both sides of the coin, if you know what I mean, instead of me going straight to what my natural tendency would be of a particular topic. I've tried to inject a bit of a pause in there and go, okay, well, what does the other side say? And in some cases, I think that AI and coaching, it will mean that there are some people that will be satisfied with an AI coach. And I've introduced a couple of people to using ChatGPT in voice mode. It's crazy. Like they have normal conversations. They can have conversations for hours, and it doesn't. The thing is, it's not necessarily just on coaching. You could talk to them about movies you've watched or cars you like, like anything. And so I think that there'll be some people there that will actually benefit from that, and won't feel the need to see an actual coach. And so from that point of view, if you and I are coaches, then we could be potentially losing business. But I think at some point there will be a time that people might use a digital coach and suddenly decide, I might want to change some things up. I've been using AI as my coach for a while. Like, what does the other side think? And I think that'll happen as well. I think there'll be changes as well. There'll be people that have seen a coach for a number of years and suddenly decide, well, people are talking about AI as a coach. Maybe I should try that out.
Yeah.
So there's always kind of like a yin and a yang to things.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to see what happens in the next, 5 or so years with this sort of stuff, because it's just getting better. It's getting a little bit more, there's a lot more exposure to it. I think you mentioned before. So it's going to be a thing where coaches will either need to go, oh, wow, like maybe I need to think of doing something different now because this is a bit scary. Maybe I need to do memberships. Maybe I need to do retreats. Maybe I need to niche down and pick a particular target audience instead, or I can use it to my advantage. Maybe I can say, maybe I can work with it and have it alongside, what it is that I'm doing. So I'm not sure exactly what it is it's going to be like. I don't even know how I feel about it yet, only because I'm still trying to, like, some days I'm thinking to myself, I don't think I should be doing this because like AI is going to come along, and other times I wake up and go, I'm going to do this course because this is like so much better than AI. Like AI isn't going to provide this kind of a service. So I guess it depends on what side of the bed I roll out of in the morning and what sort of hat I'm wearing.
Yeah, I think definitely what you said there. You said AI can't provide this kind of service, and that's the truth. It may give you the answers. For me, I think of it like it's in between having the best book that I wrote and you working with me. And it's kind of like the convenience spot, because if you had the choice of working with the AI that thinks like me or working with me, which one would you prefer? I'd like to think that someone would prefer to work with me, right? If all things being equal, if the price was the same and everything else, that someone would prefer to work with me one-on-one. But if you can't get that, this is like the next best thing. And I think, AI can be quite a generic coach because it's got information from everywhere, right? The good and the bad. And so it's going to give you something very generic. And I think the sweet spot for coaches like us is to have your own AI where you program it with the way you think. So it means the people that can't afford to work with you can, in some aspects, rather than them reading your book or your ebook, maybe they can just talk to your AI instead. And when they're at a point where they can afford your services, then they do. But in the meantime, they're working with something that's the next best thing. So I don't think it'll ever replace the coaching industry. There's going to be a lot of people, obviously, that are going to gravitate to it because it's more convenient. Even if you can afford to pay for a coach, perhaps you can't get them on the phone. I need to get this, sorted out now. I'll just give Shane a call. I don't have his number, but I can jump on his app and ask the AI, what would Shane do in this, or what do I need to think or do here? And that's like a next best option, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What would Shane do? That's the name of your app, is it?
Could be.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing, right? It's always. I'd love to know at what point will a person not have to make that decision, but if there is that decision, because ultimately, it's not really just a coach. It's basically any sort of service where if the message is from you directly or if the message is from AI, the outcome, would it be the same? I don't know. Now, there's a thing that is related to rapport where it's, are you going to be, as a person that specifically needs a coach, will you be more effective talking to a human about a human telling you what to do, or do you have enough self control, self-awareness to follow through with what AI coach tells you to do? You should try and do this. And I think from the immediate time of reading, I think most people will be like, oh yeah, I get that. I understand what the AI coach is telling me. I understand what Shane's telling me. It's probably a bit later on down the track where it could be weeks or months where it's like, okay, so where am I now in this journey of mine using a coach? Like am I closer to what it is? And it does come down to if there's someone on your back, i.e. you, calling the person up and just checking in and seeing how's it going, versus AI coach, where they might not have set reminders up. They might have had that initial discussion of, you have to do this, you have to journal, you have to meditate, you have to, and then maybe the first week is fine, and then the second, third, and fourth week they've not done anything. So I think I've answered my own question in explaining it. I think it's good, because I was getting a bit bleak there, because I have used Coach AI, and sometimes the stuff that comes out of Coach AI is like, wow, like that's actually really good.
Yeah.
But the idea of a coach is to have somebody on you, or have a group of people on you, to say, hey, you told me you were going to do this. How far off into it are you?
Yeah.
And if you cower down and go, oh, okay, well, I haven't gone too far, then you probably don't need a coach. Like, that's probably not it. You're probably not serious enough to go ahead with this goal that you want.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably at least a good angle with which to kind of attack that, because I think at some point coaches will need to address that full on, right? There's going to be all these people going, why should I see you? Because I could just chat about this in AI or whatever. It's like, well, is AI going to push you? Maybe at some point, but there are times as well where I get notifications on my phone, I just completely ignore them. It could be the same. Yeah. And I don't feel bad at all that, I've just told my phone to shut up, or I've just wiped that, I've swiped that. Whereas if it's you, like an actual human coach calling you up, sending you messages, are you okay? And then after, the third non-response, it's like, are you alive? ? He'll feel like, oh, now I've got to fess up to Shane and say that, I haven't done those 3 things that he wanted me to. So, okay. All right, Shane. It's an hour before. Unless now, you want to say anything before we?
Yeah. So
this
just speak on that. Actually, so I think that is the difference. The accountability, that you get with a coach or any human being, really. And I have had my my AI say to me, "You said you were going to do that, and you didn't." But I didn't feel that guilty, about it. And I said, "Yeah, you're right. But let's do that tomorrow or whatever, right?" So I think anyone that's going to work with a coach. I know we've been talking about different industries as well, but right now we're talking about coaching. But with that, there's going to be a large part where someone wants to do it, even if you're a coach working with someone and someone doesn't want to have any kind of change. They'll go, "No, I didn't do it." Guess what? Next week they probably won't turn up. They're going to bail out or whatever because they didn't want it enough or whatever it was, the desire. So, but the thing is, yes, there is someone there to push you, keep you accountable, and keep you on track. And when you get lost, they're there to steer you right back. It's kind of, I always think of it like, you didn't spend so many years in school for nothing. They could have given you all the textbooks and everything and said, just read it, and whenever you're ready, go out into the world and go and get a job, But every day you turned up to school, had to go through the classes, had to do it, minute by minute, and learn everything. And at the end of the week, you probably had to hand in homework or whatever to show that you're actually learning and you're making progress. So it's kind of like that in a way. Someone's trying to help you get on track, learn and change the habits that you have. It's not going to happen with an app unless you've got it within yourself. There's many apps, trackers and things like that where you can track your your goals or your weight or even when you're running, all of those things. But you've got to check the app and you've got to keep on track. There's no coach there with you. But if a coach is working with you, you probably don't need the app. It's there just as a point, I guess, But anyway, that's all I wanted to say on the coaching part of it.
Absolutely. Okay, Shane, so for our inaugural New Year's resolutions episode, what is your New Year's resolution? What's your New Year's resolution for 2026?
Make sure I get this business up and running.
Yes.
Like my AI job is, not AI job, but AI business is going to be thriving by the end of 2026. It might take a little while in Australia, but, so be it, And,
well done. And where can people find out more about that?
And contact me at awaken.guide. At this stage.
At this stage, okay. And my resolution for 2026 is similar to yours, is to get my coaching business off the ground. It's going good, actually. And if you want to find out more or register, you can go to rebootplayer1.com or send me an email, dex@thedecafnetwork.com. Thank you very much, Shane. I will speak to you in a week or so. See you, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bye.
See you.